The manipulator initially puts the victim in critical conditions when he convincingly puts forward a statement such as, "Do you think I will persuade you?" which implies the opposite effect when the one who is being manipulated begins to convince the manipulator of the opposite, and thus, by repeating the attitude several times, unconsciously inclines to the opinion that the manipulator is honest, whereas by all conditions, this honesty is false. In this situation, the line between lying and receptivity to the truth is blurred, which means that the manipulator achieves his goal. The defense is to ignore it and believe in yourself. The manipulator, by his words, initially casts doubt on his own arguments, referring to the more favorable conditions in which his opponent is, forcing this opponent to justify himself in the desire to convince his partner and remove suspicion from himself. Thus, the one over whom the manipulation took place unconsciously removes any installation on the censorship of the psyche, on defense, allowing to penetrate into his defenseless psyche. The manipulator's words, possible in such a situation. You say so because your position requires it now. Defense, words like, "Yes, I say that because I am in this position, I am right, and you must obey and obey me." The manipulator takes an initially high and aggressive pace of speech, thus unconsciously slamming the will of the opponent. In addition, the opponent in this case cannot properly process all the information received. This forces him to agree with the manipulator's information, unconsciously wishing that all this would stop as soon as possible. Defense: make an artificial pause, interrupt the fast pace, reduce the aggressive heat of the conversation, transfer the dialogue into a calm direction. If necessary, it is possible to withdraw for some time, interrupt the conversation, and afterwards, when the manipulator calms down, continue the conversation. Manipulator, referring to the clarification of the correctness of what you have just heard, repeating the words you said, but bringing in their own meaning. Pronounced words can be like, "Excuse me, did I understand you correctly? You say that." And then he repeats 60-70% of what he heard from you, but distorts the final meaning by inputting other information he needs. The defense is clear clarification, going back and re-explaining to the manipulator what you meant when you said this and that. In this case, the manipulator seems to agree with the information received from you, but immediately makes adjustments. According to the principle, yes, everything is right, but. The defense is to immediately thwart such attempts. The manipulator tries to provoke anger, rage, misunderstanding, resentment, etc. in you by using hurtful words in time in order to make you mad and to achieve the intended result. The defense is a firm character, a strong will, a cool mind. The manipulator achieves unconscious belittling of your status, as well as the development of a feeling of discomfort, as a result of which you, out of false modesty or insecurity, are embarrassed to ask the meaning of this or that term, which gives the manipulator the opportunity to turn the situation in the direction he wants, referring, if necessary, to your alleged approval of his earlier words. The defense is to interject, clarify, pause, and go back if necessary, citing a desire to better understand what is required of you. Applying such a position of psycho-influence, the manipulator initially puts the interlocutor in a defensive position. An example of the monologue used: "You think I will persuade you in something, convince you," which already, as if, causes the object's desire to convince the manipulator that it is not so, that you are initially well-disposed to the manipulator, etc. In this way, the object reveals itself to unconsciously agree with the manipulator's words that will follow. Defense. Words like, "Yes, I think you should try to convince me of that. Otherwise, I won't believe you, and further conversation will not be possible. The manipulator operates with quotations from the speeches of famous and significant people, specifics of the foundations and principles accepted in society, etc. Thus, the manipulator unconsciously belittles your status, saying, "Look, all respected and famous people say so, and you think quite differently, and who are you, and who are they, etc." The defense is a belief in one's exceptionalism and chosenness. Statements such as, "It's banal," "It's completely tasteless," etc., should form in the object of manipulation an initial unconscious belittling of its role and form an artificial dependence on the opinion of others, which prepares the person's dependence on the manipulator. This means that the manipulator can practically fearlessly promote his ideas through the object of manipulation, encouraging the object to solve the problems required by the manipulator. The defense is to not be provoked and to trust in your own intelligence, knowledge, experience, education, etc. Through constantly or periodically repeated phrases, the manipulator accustoms the subject to whatever information he or she is about to convey. The principle of advertising is based on such manipulation. When at first some information repeatedly appears in front of you, regardless of your conscious approval or rejection of it, and then when a person is faced with the need to choose some goods, unconsciously out of several types of goods of unknown brands, he chooses the one he has already heard about somewhere. Protection. The initial critical analysis of any incoming information. A method of manipulation by means of misunderstandings, which form false confidence in the object of manipulation by means of unconscious speculation of certain situations. And when in the end, it turns out that he misunderstood, such a person practically lacks any component of protest because unconsciously he remains sure that he himself is to blame because he misunderstood. Thus, the object of manipulation is forced, unconsciously, consciously, to accept the rules of the game imposed on him. The object of manipulation falls into the trap of the manipulator, who plays on his own alleged inattention in order to refer to the fact that he allegedly did not notice, listen to, the opponent's protest. In doing so, he actually puts the object before the fact of what has been done. The defense is to clarify and restate what you don't understand. As a result of thoughts expressed at the right moment about the insignificance of his own status, the manipulator as if forces the object to assert the opposite and to elevate the manipulator in every possible way. Thus, the manipulator's subsequent manipulative actions become invisible to the object of manipulation. Defense. If the manipulator believes that he is insignificant, it is necessary to continue to give his will, strengthening in him such a feeling, so that he has no more thoughts to manipulate you, and at the sight of you, the manipulator has a desire to obey you or avoid you. The manipulator focuses the conversation only on the pros, thereby advancing their idea and ultimately achieving manipulation of the other person's psyche. Defense. Make a series of contradictory statements, be able to say no, etc.